Welcome back to Fulfillment Therapy. Today we have some special guests with us. We have Dr. Sam and J.L. McCreedy, also known as Jesse. Dr. Sam practiced veterinary medicine for a number of years before deciding that he wanted to help people too. So he went to medical school and now practices family medicine. He's worked in all kinds of places, including the US, Germany, Samoa, China, Indonesia, and Italy, and many more. And Jessie first discovered her love of writing and developed an incurable condition of wanderlust while growing up in Southeast Asia as a third culture kid. She holds a Bachelor of Arts in English and a law degree, freelances as a writer and consultant for charitable organizations, and whenever possible, drags her splendid husband on ill-planned adventures. I'm so excited to hear from you guys today. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you, Kendra.
Nice to be here.
Yeah, it sounds like a very fun, colorful life that you have. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourselves?
We have been married for a long time, and it's been a wonderful adventure to share life with Sam. And I guess we met years ago in professional school. And one of the things that bound us together was this ambition that we didn't really want to pursue our careers like normal people. And so we both recognized that it was much more important to us to have experience than to earn a lot of money. For better or for worse, we made a pact that we would use our degrees to build as much as possible to live and work around the world. So that's been our trajectory ever since. And it's been an adventure, lots of ups and downs, but I think overall it's been a good choice for us.
I would echo all of that. It's been good. Life is life. It has its ups and downs. You still have to pay your bills or deal with an illness or get your car fixed or whatever, no matter where you are or what you're doing. But yeah, having a good partner by your side and somebody that you hope you could be a good partner back to makes it a lot better. And yeah, as Jesse mentioned, we met years ago when we were both in our schooling and just trying to find a sense of fulfillment and purpose in life beyond just the standard script that kids are given at an early age. You have to go to college, get this degree, live in the house in the suburb, drive the new car, wear the fancy watch and all that. And a sense that maybe there's more to life than that. I don't know, looking for that. I mean, going on an exploration to find we're really wanting to do with this one life we have, because it is a lot shorter than I think you realize when you're young. As you get older, you see it going by faster and make the most of it. Get as much as you can out of life and hopefully help others do the same and leave the world at least as good as you found it, hopefully better than you found it. I think we're still on a journey trying to explore that and figure that out.
I would like to step in for a second and clarify. I think for a lot of folks, just doing the normal path is super rewarding and it has its own benefits. So I don't think Sam would imply that's not a good thing to do, but we personally knew that's not what we wanted. And so that was what set our journey forward, was just that knowledge of ourselves.
And absolutely, everybody is on their own path in life, and it wouldn't be my place to think less of someone else's path. They're doing what is good for them. But doing that scripted thing wasn't really for me. It wasn't for Jesse. And I think that largely drew us together, too.
A common bond.
You're definitely speaking my language, and I won't speak for others. Like you just said, there's plenty of people that find fulfillment in that. And yet that wanderlust part that you're talking about, with my family right now, we have 4 kids and sometimes a 5th with exchange students. That is my dream, to live 1 to 3 months out of the year in another country with them. So I'm trying to figure that out. But we went last year to Costa Rica, and I'm looking for another one, even if it's Canada. I don't care. Like just a new adventure and trying to figure that out. So that is very much why I started my business, because of this desire to go have experiences. I love that you talked about that, how that matters more than, money or different things, at least to you. That very much speaks to my soul. So I'm glad that you are showing that it is possible to do those things. I would think even as a doctor, that would be a little more challenging. That would be a career you couldn't move around as much, but it sounds like that's not the case.
No, it's actually very challenging. I remember years ago, before I was in medical school, the summer right before I went in, hiking on the Appalachian Trail. I'd been in practice as a veterinarian and got burned out. Decided to do something different. That's when I decided to go to medical school and took a summer and hiked on the Appalachian Trail. I met a guy, an old hippie, who was riding a bike in Damascus, Virginia, one of the trail towns, the Appalachian Trail, there's also a transcontinental bicycle trail that goes east to west through that same town. This guy was riding that trail. He was a fascinating old guy, a beard like in the Lord of the Rings. That was his thing. He was a carpenter. He just rode his bike all over the world because he said it's easy. I can just do carpentry work anywhere. He was telling me tales of being all through Central and South America, Africa, and Europe. I think it's a lot easier if you're not pinned in with professional degree. Getting opportunities as a physician has actually been almost a full-time job at times, finding those opportunities and being able to make it work. I think there are plenty of opportunities for volunteer work. If you wish to go on a mission trip where you go with a group and spend 2 weeks somewhere, and I think that's great, and I encourage people to do that sort of thing. I think our goal has been more, let's go somewhere and stay put for a year or two, get immersed into a community and learn the culture, try to learn a little bit of the language. I had a friend in my training, actually 2 people that had an influence on that thought process. One of them was a guy who was a former Army captain, he was a helicopter pilot in the Army and went back to medical school. And he talked about how he had spent a year in Australia in the Army. And he said, I feel like you have to be somewhere at least a year to really feel like you know a place and you're not just a tourist or whatever. And then the other person that had an influence was a guy in my residency, a good friend who was from Pakistan. And he talked about if you can find a way to get paid to be in other places and to travel, that really makes sense. And both of those have shaped our goal. He had spent a year in Norway before he came to America, and the Norwegian government paid him to be there. There's some sort of an exchange student with Pakistan.
Canada.
He lived in Canada for a while. And so that's been our goal, is to not, and again, not to say there's anything wrong with going on a week or a month mission trip somewhere or whatever, but more, how can we go somewhere and actually make a living, be part of a place, and get a message in it? And so that's finding those opportunities. It's not impossible, though a lot of people told us it would be. It is difficult. It takes some time and some diligence.
I think the world's changed though, right? Everything's remote and mobile now. When we started it out, like it's in a lawyer, like that was what I went to school for. And it was unheard of to be like a remote lawyer. Right. The world has really, it makes me like, I feel very old when I look like the purpose. It's really changed.
Yeah.
Which is great because now I feel like there is a bit more opportunity and there's a lot more social acceptance for experimenting with kind of life that gives you more fulfillment, which is wonderful.
Yeah, especially with your background. You've had to learn how to jump through these hoops, get to these spaces where you can, and now you can do extended stays in different areas, which I, again, totally envy. My kids right now are like, no, I want to go to school in Idaho, in America. I was like, no, you don't. You want to go international. They're like, no, we do not. So someday.
That's education.
I keep telling them, and ultimately I could decide, but I realize it's just a matter of time and then I'll be able to do it more. But that's amazing. I'm so excited to hear a little bit about your adventures. But as we're talking about these different adventures and being all over the place, this question is for you, Sam. So how has practicing medicine across all these cultures, these countries, how has that shaped your perspective on wellness and fulfillment?
I think getting exposed to different cultures, it exposes you to different viewpoints on how to look at life and what matters to you and what's important. When you see commonalities, people in various places, things that, okay, we share these common traits as humans, maybe they get expressed in different ways. A lot of the basic things that matter to me also matter to somebody in Tonga or Samoa or China. A sense of love or a sense of family, feeling like you're part of something bigger than yourself. And I think it gives one more of a sense of empathy for people that maybe don't share your opinions or your viewpoints, but you realize they're coming from a different place. They're coming from a different perspective. Rather than looking at that as a threat, I think in the last several years with all the COVID stuff and social media, a lot of times in America, we've really gotten this mentality of you're either with me or against me sort of thing. You're in my tribe or you're not. I think even people that are on completely different ends of the political spectrum or religions or whatever, I think we have a lot more in common than we have differences. But we have to be open to see the commonality and to see where someone else is coming from. I think traveling forces you to do that a little bit. You're in the States and you hear horrible things about people in this place, and then you go live amongst them and realize, well, no, I just had lunch with 20 of them and they're actually pretty good people. They just eat. Yeah. If I ever one word I Yeah, empathy, just an empathy for others and the way they view the world and where they're coming from.
Yeah, that's beautiful. We noticed that same thing in my family, having exchange students from different countries, and my kids especially, like opening their hearts and their minds to different perspectives that they didn't grow up with, that were very different to them. So I love that you're seeing that in all of those different countries as well. And then my next question is actually for you, Jesse. So you wrote a book. I just wanted to ask a quick question about that. What are you hoping to achieve by putting this book out into the world? And will you tell us a little bit about it for the listeners?
First of all, the book, Sam and I wrote the book together.
I didn't realize that. I'm sorry.
Justin.
My favorite part of this, I've actually written a middle grade adventure fantasy trilogy called Liberty Cry, and then I have a young adult kind of romance adventure called Orphan of Trinity. And so I have other books, but this book, Theodore the Sloth Who Wants to, is a rhyming children's picture book, really about resilience and overcoming obstacles. And I actually wrote it years ago, like back in 2008. We wrote it one night when we were in a low place in our life, and our jobs were not what we had hoped for. We had actually moved specifically for these jobs, and they did not pan out the way we had hoped. We were both kind of sitting around one night just feeling sorry for ourselves and woe with God. And one of us compared our circumstance, these dreams that we have, to a sloth who thinks that he can race, that he can be fast. Like, we're just ridiculous. What are we expecting now? Like, this is silly. And then Sam, being a veterinarian, started like riffing about very strange people. We started writing story about a sloth who thinks he can. We finished this story really quickly, but I realized we wanted to do something with it. But neither of us were artists, so we couldn't illustrate it. So we're like, great, we've got this story that we really love, but what can we do? And I actually tried to work with a few illustrators to get the story illustrated, but because I'd never illustrated and I'm not a professional, I couldn't even articulate what I wanted to be seen. You had this vague idea in your mind, but you don't know how to share that with somebody else. And so it just never worked out. And Sam kept nagging me over years. He's like, Jesse, just draw it yourself. And I'm like, I can't draw. And he just kept telling me, no, you can do this. You can do this. And so I started like with sketches, and literally this book took me years to illustrate. I feel like now I'm proud of it. I'm proud of the outcome. I think Theo is super cute, but it literally took me years to do this because everything I was drawing, like just pen and paper at first, and it was painfully slow. I was constantly having to crumple a paper and draw another sloth. And I'm thinking like everybody else, they're working in offices, earning money as attorneys, and I'm trying to draw a sloth. And it was hard. Like, it really made me just, am I insane? Why am I putting my effort into this? But I just kept doing it. I just couldn't let it go. And eventually I got a digital, where you can draw digitally, and it really helped speed up the process and help me learn how to draw better. But the process was super slow and super tedious. And it was literally just doing it every day, saying, I can do this. It was very messy. It was completely filled with self-doubt and discouragement and just feeling like really an identity crisis as to why I'm drawing these pictures. And I feel like that experience has been one of the richest anecdotes that I can share with kids now, because when I go to school, then I share my book. All the kids so far, they've been really enthusiastic about the pictures, which is fantastic for me. But the kids, they share that. I'm like, I want to draw, but I feel like I can't draw. Like, I'm no good at it. And they say, I try to draw something and it just doesn't look like what I want. And I just get so mad and I throw away all the papers. I'm like, I know exactly how you feel. And I can really relate with them. And I said, look, like, you're 6. All you have to do is just keep trying. Just even every day, just try a little bit. Just try for 10 minutes to draw. And I promise you, by the time you're 15, you're going to be a good drawer. I think you're going to be a better drawer than I will ever be, because I'm way older than you and I'm not sick. Like, you start now. When you're my age, you'll be amazing. And I think it actually helps kids to hear this, because they so easily feel discouraged if they're just not naturally excellent at something. Like, they just have this, I don't know where they get that idea that you're supposed to just be excellent. You're supposed to just get right the first time. And if you don't do that, then you don't have the ability. Like, you're just no good. Like, you don't have that talent. And that, to me, is just, it excites me to feel like Theodore can help them overcome that negative messaging, because it really is soul crushing for kids to go through life with that kind of mindset and to not realize, no, you can do something about this.
It makes me think of my 11-year-old who's especially like this. Like when you said they have this mentality of they're supposed to be excellent. My 11-year-old gets so angry. I try to teach her how to play pickleball or different sports that she tries, and she's trying to be like her 14-year-old brother and gets really angry that she cannot be excellent like he is. And just that message, like, it's okay if it's messy. It's okay if you feel a little bit of self-doubt. That's part of the process, and normalizing that. I love what you're speaking to, and just try a little bit, like that incremental growth. That's such a beautiful message.
The young children, I think we naturally have that ability to just mess up, to fall down. And I think that's largely why young kids are so much better at picking up language or picking up a skill like riding a bike or skiing or something. I never skied as a child at all. We had a house in New Hampshire. We still own the house, actually. And yeah, we need to learn how to ski. And I'm terrible at it. And I'll see a 4-year-old basically going backwards while they're looking at their smartphone or something. And the same thing with language. The little American kids here in Italy that are just picking up Italian easily. I think a lot of that skill acquisition is the neuroplasticity in the brain, but I think also a lot of it is just this willingness to screw up, to just get out there and fall down, to just say it wrong or whatever. And somehow we get this message drilled into us somewhere at a fairly early age that failure is not an option. Allow to make mistakes, be punished for that. And I think that's a message that we need to maybe try to reverse a little bit of, hey, making mistakes is how you learn to do it right. That's the learning process, and it's good.
Yeah, definitely. I appreciate you speaking to that as well, because that's one thing actually, both my girls, it seems like I'm trying to teach them the most too. I want to encourage them to try to do things where they know that they might fail, because that's especially exemplary, because it requires more courage. It requires more leaning in and experimenting. Wonderfully said, and important to remember, especially for our kids, which actually goes into my next question I have for you. How do you suggest parents break down those impossible dreams into manageable steps for themselves and their kids, especially if it does seem like it could be a failure or messy?
Sure. I think part of it ties into what we were just talking about, which is giving the children the message that failure is okay. It's okay to grow and to not punish them. A lot of times kids are punished, and sometimes it's subtle punishments that maybe people aren't even aware of, just a facial expression or whatever, where the kid feels like, wow, I disappointed mom or dad. And I think giving them this unconditional love and support, if they're doing your best, hey, you fell down, I still love you. I still think the world of you. You're still my kid, and it's okay. Let's try again. And also, I think maybe framing it as, hey, here's this impossible goal. Maybe it's not impossible. Maybe it is. But what is possible is this first step. Let's focus on that. Let's work on that right now. As kids go through some failures, realize they can recover, get better, and eventually accomplish goal number one. It gives them more confidence to then keep pursuing things that may lead to failure. In our own lives, traveling to other countries, taking jobs overseas, boy, that first one, it was pretty scary and daunting. And it still is, but it's not nearly as much as we've gone into different places and different cultures. You start to realize, well, this is something we can do. It's normal to be scared, and it's normal to be anxious and frightened about it or whatever. And it's normal to screw up. It's normal to say the wrong word or drive down the wrong way on the street or whatever, or offend somebody unintentionally or whatever. And you do your best. But I think giving kids that sense of confidence that even if I screw up, I've still got somebody there, my support system. I've still got a parent that loves me. I remember seeing an interview with Warren Buffett, and he talked about that, saying, what's the greatest gift your dad gave you, Mr. Buffett? And he said, there was unconditional love. It wasn't money. It wasn't status. It was just that unconditional love to realize I had to go out and make a mistake. He was still my dad and still loved me, and it was okay. And I thought that was such a great message. I think so many kids don't really realize that or feel that.
If I may, I remember once Sam telling me this story that I thought was really cool. He had a parent that brought in their child, and he asked the child, what do you want to be when you grow up? He also asks kids, like, what is your favorite dinosaur?
And every now and then they teach me about a dinosaur I never heard of. And that's not real. I'm backwards and what dog had to do real.
So this child said, I want to be a doctor, but I don't think I'll ever be a doctor. And Sam's like, why? And the kid said, because I'm not good at science. Sam said, when I was your age, I wasn't good at science either. Like, I actually wasn't good at school. He said, and then I realized that if I want to do well in life, I need to do better at school. And these are the things I'm interested in, and very interested in animals as a child. And though he had an inkling, but he wanted to go into some kind of science related field to get better at school. I started not just doing my homework, but I would also just do a page extra homework in that. So every day I would just do a little bit extra than what was being asked of me. And before I knew it, I became an A student. You just have to put in that little extra bit of work every day and just trust that process that you apply yourself and you'll get better. Seem encouraged by that.
I think giving kids a message or a realization that their dreams are worthy dreams. If somebody wants to be a doctor, great. If they want to be a dancer or a carpenter or a plumber or a welder, I think any pursuit that they have a passion for and they want to do, I think it's worthwhile. As long as it's not some crazy thing where we're going out and harming other people, but it's something where I'm trying to make it a good place in this world and help others or whatever. I think it's all worthy. Being encouraged that, hey, it's not necessarily possible if other people are doing it. Why can't you? You can too. Maybe you'll never be Michael Jordan and be the best basketball player ever or something, but that doesn't mean you can't play basketball and be good at it. And even if you never get on a professional team, you can still do something you're enjoying doing, and that's a worthy pursuit. I feel like so many kids just grow up with this thought that I can never do this or I can never do that. I had a classmate in medical school who expressed when he was growing up, it wasn't even on his radar that he was ever going to be anything other than a laborer. He just grew up in a very lower middle class, and everybody he knew, everybody, every other kid's father or whatever was a laborer, and that's all you could ever do. And it was just coming in contact with one person when he was in high school that was like, no, you could actually do something else, and encouraged him. Lit a spark in his eye. And yeah, he's a practicing physician right now. He actually did residency training and did another residency. So he's actually double specialty and doing really well with that. You know, and it ties back. I saw an interview with Steve Jobs once. He talked about that, how when he finally started having his success was when he realized he saw these people he admired, these artists and scientists, to realize they're not really any smarter than me. I can do this too. And maybe somebody has a slightly higher IQ or lower IQ, you can still do it too. And yeah, I think we do have an effect on kids. And anytime we have an opportunity, I think, to be encouraging, we should.
Yeah.
100%. I appreciate many things that you said, but really focusing on that unconditional love and focusing on that first step. Sam, I appreciate some of those stories that you brought in as well about Warren Buffett and Steve Jobs. Both of those really resonated with me too. But that's even just for me, that you said something like, they're not any smarter than me. Sometimes the podcast guests that come in like bios, you're just like, wow, I am not qualified here. Just leaning in and really recognizing more and more as you do it, that we are all just people and we're all faking it till we make it a little bit. And teaching kids that too. Everybody's, at one point, we all felt insecure and unsure and just kept leaning in. And I love that you speak to that. Are you teaching that on many platforms? I'm not really sure.
I think we all have a duty to try to be there for one another, not just our family and close friends, but just we encounter. We humans have a moral or ethical obligation to try to help others. See someone else that's down, try to help them, or see someone that, you know, can benefit from some encouragement, guidance, or leading by example. That's not the same. You know, look at me, I'm this paragon of example. I'm certainly not. I've got my own weaknesses like anybody else. But I think we can try to encourage others, especially kids, though. When kids come in, they're okay. And frankly, not all kids have that message at home. Sometimes you can sense it very quickly. It doesn't mean their parents are bad people. They're stressors. They've got life beating down on them, their own baggage and their own backgrounds. And I think sometimes giving a little bit of encouragement, and not just to the kid, but to the parent as well. Bring the way to, wow, you're really working hard to be a good parent to this kid, and you're really lucky to have this kid. You have you as a parent. And I think sometimes that helps them do a better job too, perhaps.
Absolutely. I want to go back to something that you both spoke to, talking about those impossible dreams, do you mind, either of you, starting with you, Jesse, about some impossible dreams that you've set that you've been practicing what you're preaching in a sense?
I think this most recently, as I had spoke to in illustrating of Theodore the Sloth Who Wants to Rage, it might sound ridiculous, but to me, that was extremely intimidating, and it truly felt impossible that I would be able to like fully illustrate a children's book and to have it received by children and liked. I thought, there's no way I can do this, honestly. So it's not an earth-shattering experience, but for me, that was a really important journey to go through for me to realize, to see the objective that seemed unattainable. Like, why am I applying myself to this when I know I could be more productive in X, Y, and Z? Why am I applying myself to A over here? But I did because it was important to me. Like, this objective was important to me, even though it didn't make any sense to pretty much anyone else. And it felt like it was not something I'd be able to achieve. I realized how important that whole process and experience was until I had completed the book and completed the publication of it. And then I look at this in my hands and I almost cried because I realized, oh my gosh, like I really truly believe I could not do this. And it's just because it's so tangible. It's not something you can hold in your hands, right? And so this is something I can hold in my hands and see, I did this because I applied myself and kept trying, even though my confidence was non-existent. I just did my best every day and tried to get better, and I achieved this goal that truly seemed out of reach. So that would probably be a big one. And then also, just as we've talked about our lifestyle, I think for Sam and me both, just being able to live around the world that like we have, that seemed impossible when we started out. The internet was obviously there, but it wasn't accessible the way things are now. And so to find information, to find out how to do things was quite daunting. And it seemed like no way would we be able to have this kind of lifestyle. And I remember when we first got together, we watched Under the Tuscan Sun. And I remember seeing this movie and oh my goodness, that blew my mind. Just the possibility of somebody winning like that blew my mind, that you could move out of this almost predetermined life for you and then create this completely new, fulfilling reality because that's what you want. And I remember just feeling like that was so unattainable. And we just kept working, not toward that goal, but like toward those kind of ideas. And then, yeah, here we are years and years later, and Sam got a job in Italy, which is where Under the Tuscan Sun is. Actually, we've been in Italy for 3.5 years, and we had 1 week off, which is the first time we've had that just for the two of us. And we went on a road trip last week, and we drove over to the house of Under the Tuscan Sun. Speaks to your impossible dream because it's again, it's like a kind of a silly thing, but when we went to the house, it was like a last minute thought, right? But when I stood outside the gate, I realized like this silly experience seemed impossible to me years ago. I came from a very different background. I was amazed I even got to law school, but then to have this kind of life, it wasn't what I was supposed to have. This was not my predetermined course, right? I feel like this was who I was supposed to be. To have that experience of standing outside the gate of this place that completely excited and inspired me years ago. It was one of those moments where you realize if something's really important to you, whether it's a small thing or a big thing, and you just keep trying to step toward that, sometimes things that seem impossible become your reality. Sometimes you're literally standing at that gate of impossibility.
Yeah, beautiful story. And I love how it circles back around to going to that house, going to that scene in the movie. That's so beautiful.
The cool house. I did feel a little bit like a stalker.
I love it. What about you, Sam? Do you have anything impossible?
The most acute thing is desperately trying to teach myself Italian. And yeah, I will say when we first got up here 3.5 years ago, about 6 months into it, I was like, I'm never going to learn any of this language. This is impossible. I would say within the last 6 months, I'm slowly starting to feel the possibility of it a little bit. I am actually able to understand what people are saying a little bit and communicate a little bit. And so, yeah, that's probably the most acute thing. I think on the broader sense of life, that echo what we talked about before, is this, pursuing life, pursuing things that matter to us versus just, again, just falling into that set journey that seems to be the most sensible, but maybe isn't the most fulfilling. And I think, yeah, just going after the impossibility and saying, is it really impossible or is it something that can be possible? I think if you have a goal, even if ultimately you don't reach it, I think the journey towards it is still worthwhile. You're still closer to that goal than you would be if you never tried. So you might have a goal to be a multimillionaire, but if you never even try because it's impossible, then 50 years from now, you're still in the same place you were when you started. Versus, hey, if I'm trying and I'm pursuing these things, or same thing, learning a language, my goal may be fluent in Italian. Maybe I'll never become fluent in Italian. But if I'm trying, hey, 3.5 years later, I can go order a pizza, ask for directions or something, I'm closer to it than I would be otherwise. Fulfillment in that. Same thing with other places we've lived and other pursuits perhaps it hasn't just been a total sunshine and lollipops and everything's great, but it's still good. Our first overseas living situation together was a job that I took right out of my residency training in Germany, and it was working as a contractor on a U.S. military base in Germany. And it was a terrible contract. We absolutely just lost our shirts financially. We were there for right over a year, about 13 months. There was a lot of promises on the front end. They weren't really true, but it was still a great experience. We happened to the financial security to be able to do it. We had some savings. We burned through those 100%. We came back to America later with our tails between our legs, absolutely poor. But I would do it again in a heartbeat.
And with lots of student loan.
Oh, yeah, deep in debt. With zero money in savings at that point. But the experience that we lived in Europe, we realized that it is possible to go do something. That we had an old beater car that we had bought, and we drove that thing everywhere in Europe. We came back, but I think also probably the biggest thing we got out of it was that realization, and that you can go do things like that, and you can still bounce back, even if it doesn't work out financially. And we learned a little bit about contracts, and for my end, Jesse's an attorney, she already knows about contracts, but for my end, I learned a little bit about questioning things and getting back to that original, when you were talking about, is it difficult to find positions overseas? It's easy to find positions overseas. It's harder to find ones that don't result in you losing your shirt eventually. Hey, I can go live somewhere and it's a sustainable thing and have fulfillment and not just stress and burnout the whole time.
If I just jump in for a second, I was just thinking what you said, Kendra, earlier about impossible dreams and just expectations. And I think that maybe one of the biggest hurdles is just that it's not even the perceived impossibility of the dream. It's the fear of failure. It's the fear that you put yourself on a limb and people are rolling their eyes at you, and then you fail, you have nothing. But that's not actually what happens. What happens is, even if you fail, you have the richness of this experience that then begets all kinds of other things that you never anticipated. So going after that impossible dream, whether you achieve it or not, go after it like you will achieve it. Believe that you can, just try. But then in the process, you find yourself becoming a richer person for the experience of it. I think.
Yeah.
And again, I think that when you bounce back from it, you realize, wow, that hurt, but didn't it kill me?
You can do this now.
Yeah, it gives that confidence to try something risky again. It gives confidence to get out there and try some more.
Yeah. Some key words that you guys said, I just want to reiterate. You said, Jesse, you talked about becoming. I love that process of becoming and how beautiful and, in a sense, like sacred that is. And that confidence that you talked about, Sam, that is achieved throughout that process. Really quick, brief story. A lot of my clients, because I'm a therapist, they come in and they tell me their stories, and I'm really anxious, I'm really depressed. And as I hear their stories, instead of them thinking it's like A, B, and C because of trauma or this or that, which it can be for sure, as I get the background, that it's more of the state of being stuck, like feeling stagnant, feeling complacent, feeling a little bored and lost in life, and missing that sense of adventure, whatever that looks like, whether that's going to Italy or Germany or staying home, whatever that is. But having that wonder, that joy, striving for something, which sounds like what you guys are talking about, leaning in and letting go of that fear of failure, or just knowing that it's going to be along for the ride and that's okay. Just beautiful that you guys are speaking to that and really practicing what you preach. So thank you for sharing your story.
Well, thank you. And ultimately, I think the book that we put out recently, I think that's largely the message in the book.
That is the message.
Theodore, he's a sloth. He wants to race every other sloth that he knows is telling him, what the heck are you doing? Stop that. Slow down. But he's going for it anyway. And ultimately, he's about to give up. And he meets one sloth who's like, no, keep going. Gives him some encouragement.
Some intelligent tips.
Yeah.
Okay, if you want to be faster, try doing some squats to strengthen your legs so you can sprint better.
Yeah.
And it's that approach of, it's not just like this unreachable goal, but you can do these very practical, logical steps to move close to that end that you're hoping for, which,
Well, I'm excited to check that out, especially my son. I think would very much love that. And for listeners, where can we find you guys? Where can we find your books, whether it's your other ones, Jesse, or the ones that you've done together?
Thank you, Kendra. The books are all available Amazon, Barnes & Noble. You should be able to go to your local bookstore and ask for it. But if you want to get all the titles specifically, probably the easiest way would be to go to my website. It's McCreedy.com. And we are McCreedy with 2 E's.
Yeah.
So it's JLMCCREEDY.com. Also, there's a link there to a blog that I've been keeping up for several years, just tracking our travels. If you can't go to sleep one night, you can check it out. Information on the places that we've been and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and that blog is Tonga Time, which Jesse started when we were living in Tonga. More as just sort of a diary to record some of our experiences there, but then kept it up through some of the other countries. Yeah, just check out the JLMcCreedy.com website. That's got all of her books and links.
Perfect. And I will definitely put those in the show notes as well. But thank you so much, both of you, for coming on the show today. And we loved hearing all about that. And I'm excited to check out the book too. So thank you again.
Kendra, thank you so much. It's really been a pleasure to meet you. And thanks for having me.
You're really easy to talk to. So just thank you for being such a welcoming presence.
Hey friends, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, chances are someone else would too. Would you take 30 seconds to share this with a friend who's looking for greater family fulfillment? And while you're sharing, tell me what you think about the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. It refuels me when I hear this podcast is helping you. No matter what your house or your hair looks like. I'll meet you back here every Monday and Thursday morning for more episodes. Until then.